And this is why we play around with different things. So I thought I'd try a different intro, and then I came on mute because I didn't want to accidentally talk in the background. But here we are. Going live today because I'm going in for surgery tomorrow for my wrist, and I thought I wanted to keep the streak going of doing one of these a week, which isn't easy, but it's doable. So that's where we're at. If you happen to be listening live, feel free to jump in the comments and let me know that you're there. I have been jumping backwards and forwards about what to talk about today, but I guess I've already forgotten what my thumbnail was, because the whole idea is to title the episode different to the thumbnail name. Consistency first, right, before intensity. That's where my mind was going with that. So keep the streak going, which is important in the fitness space too, or maybe even just in regards to nutrition. Justin, lucky camera straps. I'm listening live. I can hear you from the next room. On a 10-second delay, or should I shut my door so you can't hear me talking and then talking again? All right. Keep the streak going. In terms of consistency first, I guess, what did I want to bring up? I want to share this tab. I saw, it was a few weeks ago now, this Instagram post, and I guess this is the one that would prompt me for further discussion when I read out maybe one or a couple of the questions that are coming up. So simply put, this post says, if you train, you need to recover. If you train more, you need to recover more. And if you train a lot, you need to recover a lot. I think people often forget that if they do lots of training, they need to do a lot of recovery. But recovery isn't necessarily just like stretching. It might be eating for recovery, so eating well. Recovery might be getting a sufficient amount of sleep, drinking enough water, managing inflammation, having rest days where required. So people often think recover might just mean I need to do some stretches after class, or people might think that recovery is going to hot cold sauna, but they're all, as Dan Andrews would once say, part of the package. In terms of recovery. So the important thing here is the more you train, the more priority you need to put on recovery. If you are training 3, 4, 5 times a week, there is still requirement for recovery for you to feel well, but you don't need to put as much of a priority on it. So I wanted to bring that up first, just as a way to get my mind in the right space and thinking. If you are listening, feel free to comment, say hello in the chat. I am just going to pull up the questions that I don't have organized in front of me. There are a few from Beck, who is a paramedic and therefore a shift worker. And I thought I might just, let's see if I can post them all in here. Let's see what happens when I do this. Probably won't space them out like I want them to. Ooh. Delete comment, delete comment, delete comment. All right, maybe I'll just share this page instead. Share this tab, add to stage. Oh, speak of the devil, Beck's watching. Hi, Beck. Well, I have chosen your DM list of questions to talk very broadly about, but if at any point you hear me say something and you want to add some more context to it, feel free to comment it in the chat, and that might help me be more specific in what I say if you want. So nice to have Beck there. Hello, and thank you for your questions, and thanks for listening. I'm going to go through these bit by bit in terms of I guess giving generalized advice on these without getting specific information off Beck about any of them, unless she chooses to add anything in the chat. Justin also says, hey, Beck. So if you are listening or watching as well and you want to say hello to Beck or Justin, feel free to jump in there. All right, so Beck's first question, I don't know if I can make me bigger here. Anyway, they're going to be on the page here. Maybe as I talk through them, I'll just read them all out in one. Is it better to train before or after night shift? Should I still train if I haven't slept well? How do I know if I'm actually too tired to work out or just being lazy post big night shifts? I'm always tired, so should I just train anyway? What do you think about coffee on night shifts? Does magnesium actually help your sleep? What are the biggest sleep mistakes shift workers make? What should I do if I can't make it to the gym because I'm so tired after work? How do I get into a gym routine? I'd like to think right now Beck actually does do a really good job of her gym routine. So in answering the last question first, how do I get into a gym routine? Beck, if you don't think that's the case, maybe say something in the comments, but I'd like to give Beck credit there for being a shift worker. The shift workers that do come to our gym seem to have quite good routines, and I guess that's the thing too. If you didn't, we probably wouldn't see you very often, but we see you regularly, and that's what makes me think you're in a good routine of coming to the gym. Matt's there too. Hey, I'm still at work, so just checking in. Well, I mean, what are you doing normally, Matt? Are you normally not at work when you listen? I think I normally go live at 1 o'clock on a Thursday, so maybe that's Matt's lunch break normally. All right, let's start with the first question. And I'll just pull it up, make myself bigger, and make that smaller just as a way to make this simpler. So Beck's first question, is it better to train before or after night shift? Depends. I don't know what time your night shift is, but honestly, it's one of those things for the answer is it depends. In the same way it depends for someone who works 9 to 5, is it better to train before or after work? What works best for you? What can you do consistently most of the time? Not necessarily day to day, but obviously not day to day, because night shift comes around 2 nights in a row, however many days apart. And if you're still listening, you can probably comment that in there. What do you find works better? Often things can be trial and error. So in terms of maybe there's someone starting out in the shift working industry and they're trying to work out what works best for them. You have to try to know. For some people, treating it like if you're a morning exercise, like you wake up and the first thing you do is exercise and then you go to work from there, maybe training before a night shift is most suitable for you. If you're someone who likes to train after a day of work, then maybe training after night shift is more suitable for you. So it really, I'm going to say, depends person to person. It would be interesting. I should have got Beck to answer all these questions with a quick response to be like what she finds better in that moment. But it really does depend person to person, or potentially what the work is like. So if your night shifts are always hectic and you're exhausted at the end of the night shift, but you've got the ability to train before you go to work, then maybe that's the best way for you to have consistency, because you don't have to convince yourself to exercise after night shift. If and in the paramedic space, I'm sure it's not easy to predict what the night's going to be like, but if you know that you're going to turn up somewhere to exercise after night shift and you don't need to think and someone's just going to tell you what to do, maybe it's easier for you to train after night shift. Now, I'm not saying training will be 100% what you expect it to be after night shift, but maybe it's just easier to do it after. And again, that's where it comes down to trial and error and what suits the individual based off how they feel at given times. Or sorry, shouldn't be based off how you feel, what you can fit or work into your schedule or routine when those night shifts come up. If it was, and this is just a real generalization, I was going to say, actually, I'll read this first because that'll help me answer. We do 4 on, 4 off with 1 or 2 night shifts depending on the week. Example would be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 6 p.m. to 8 a.m., and then 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. So 4 days on, 1 or 2 of those days might be nights. So in this example here, 4 on, 4 off. So over the space of 8 days, there's 2 night shifts. Now, if you really struggle to exercise around night shifts, then maybe the best way to go about it is night shift days are my rest days. If you don't find it too difficult to show up to the gym before or after night shift, because maybe exercising before night shift helps set you up to be awake for that long period, which 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. is a decent stint there. Maybe exercising beforehand is better. If you find that you just prefer to go into your night shift fresh and then turn up to the gym, know that you might not be able to imply the intensity or the effort like you normally would if you weren't post-night shift, but you're still going in there to move, then that might be the best option for you. So in a roundabout way of that long discussion, trial and error, see what works. Sometimes one thing might work, sometimes something different might work, but over time you'll start to learn what your body prefers or what you find easier to be consistent with. Hello, Grant, and Finnan. Hi, Finnan, if you're watching there. Matt, if you're listening still, Justin was curious to know what quarterfinals workouts are you doing first? Which order are you doing them in? All right, the second question from Beck. And I kind of touched on this a little bit, was should I still train if I haven't slept well? So at the end of the day, at the start of the day, whatever the part of the day it is, and that opening clip that, share this tab, add that to the screen. If you train, you need to recover. If you train more, you need to recover more. If you train a lot, you need to recover a lot. Sleep is part of recovery. Now, if you are lacking sleep regularly, I'm going to say sleeping is going to be more important to you than training is. But again, that is generalized based off little information. In this situation here, should I still train if I haven't slept? Someone who wakes up at 5 a.m. to start work at 6 a.m. and they work, they're a tradie who does a 12-hour day, 6 a.m. till 6 p.m., they could still train after work. So there's nothing saying that you can't train, and I'm using night shift again as an example, in the morning after night shift, because it's not unrealistic to have that period of time where you haven't slept and then you're training after that point. So it's almost like you shift your thought process to, it's not night shift, but it's, I'm at this period in my day right now. So should I still train if I haven't slept well? Again, you can, and it comes down to maybe you go into training and maybe you're aware that you're not going to be able to put the effort or the intensity in that you might normally be able to do, but you can still go in there and just progress towards what, it might be consistency, it might be your goal. It might just be working towards turning up regularly in that trial and error phase. So I would say it depends. You're seeing a trend here, Beck? It depends. The next question was, how do I know if I'm actually too tired to work out or just being lazy post big night shift? Beck, if you are listening, have you noticed anything change between those two things? Whether you are just being lazy or it is too tired? while I wait to see if Beck's listening and she answers that just for a little bit more context, Matt says, Justin, I think either 1 or 2, as they would be the ones I'll possibly redo. 3 or 4 will hopefully just be one attempt. What are your thoughts? From what I've heard, I wouldn't be aiming to redo any of these. With the time caps, you are going to feel the effects of them all pretty badly. Well, Matt, one and done. And that's that point about intensity as well. It's like if you put 100% effort in, you shouldn't want to redo it. If you're worried about going out too hot, then pace early and push hard at the back. And if you're worried about over pacing, then sure, redo. You couldn't be too sore from it if you overpaced it. Coming back to Beck, how do I know if I'm actually too tired to work out or just being lazy post big night shift? I don't know how to answer that one for you. Are you yawning? Are you unable to concentrate? Do you feel like you might hurt yourself if you train? And again, it comes to, well, if you are tired, then maybe the intensity drops to avoid causing injury. If you are just feeling lazy, that's a feeling? Are there things that you notice that happen with one or the other? And a perfect example would be, and this is just to give an example based off myself, when my lower back is tired, and not just my brain being lazy and not wanting to exercise, I am more susceptible to rolling my left ankle walking on flat ground. And so if we go for a walk and I stand on a twig on the ground and my ankle rolls a little bit, I can feel it hitting a point where it's almost going to roll. And that to me says to me, okay, I need to just back off, whether it's the intensity or the volume, or just have a rest day so that my back can recover, because it's sending instability down my left side to my ankle, which has already had the most issues since my back has recovered from the injury I went through. So that would be an example of something I know that tells me, hey, maybe I'm too tired, even if it's not like I feel like I'm going to fall asleep tired, versus just being lazy. What is my body showing me that might be signs or cues? So have a think about that in terms of what you might find happens for you. I mean, if you're on, like, you'll know pretty well whether or not you are tired based off how you wake up, or how long you want to sleep for, or whether you feel like you're refreshed when you wake up. And that might be a good indicator too. Beck says, when I wake up with a pounding headache and I feel nauseous, I know that's me too tired. Yep. I also know doing a workout improves those symptoms though. And so, I mean, and that's a really important thing. So maybe the first step is like, hey, I don't know in the moment whether it's I'm actually really tired or I'm just feeling lazy right now. And so I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do the workout, but I'm going to back off the intensity and see how I feel as I progress through the warm up, through the prep, and then into the workout. And then, and the reason why I keep coming back to this, backing off the intensity, is if you're pushing yourself past the point that your body can handle in that moment because you are tired, we don't want to risk injury there. So it's like you got to be smart in that way about pulling back just a little bit so that you can still get the positive effects of exercising without causing risk of injury to your body. And then with that in mind too, recovery from that point. Making sure you eat well to recover from the exercise you did. Eating well will also promote like decent recovery and your ability to return to a fuller, I keep using the word recovery because I don't know what else to say. And like you say there, I always know the workout improves those symptoms. So it's like, yeah. So even when you would be aware, even when you feel sluggish or when you feel like you've got a headache or nauseous, if you go to the workout and you do it, you'll feel better. If the headache gets worse through the workout, then it's a sign. It's like, hey, I'm just going to call it here because I think that my body is trying to tell me right now in this moment, this is not what I need. listen to your body. Start to take down things that you notice that happen regularly. The next question said, I'm always tired, so should I just train yesterday? And we kind of touched on that there, where it's like, hey, if the best thing for you is consistency and turning up so that you don't get out of the habit, turn up to train. And then use the warm-up and the prep time to evaluate yourself as to how you feel. And then, as we just said, the example would be if you still have a pounding headache and you feel nauseous, like through the warm-up and through the prep, and you go to start the workout and it's worse than what it was, it's like, well, there's your sign to train, not to train, to pull back and do it low intensity, or to just stop. Or is it improving and I'm going to continue through this? So I'm always tired, so should I just train anyway? I would say yes. Because sometimes, and this is where it's crazy too, sometimes on the most tired days, I would remember waking up and being like, oh, the last thing I want to do is go to the gym right now, but I know I want to train today, and I don't want to do it in the afternoon. So I've got to get up this morning and I've got to get it done. And oddly, sometimes they're PB benchmark workouts or PB lifts or thumbs up on the screen. You surprise yourself on those days. Your body is ready for what's coming up, even though it didn't feel like it. But you'll know in the warm-up, in the prep work, whether or not you're heading that direction or whether you need to pull back on it a little bit. At least I'd like to think that, or like listen to your body and see how it's responding to what you're doing. What do you think about coffee on night shifts? So that was the next question. In terms of having coffee on night shifts, I would treat it, again, this is where I go, okay, can you simulate your night shift like it would be a day shift, in terms of the clock might say it's 6 p.m., but what if you pretended like it was 6 a.m.? So if you're doing your night shift from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m., and then you plan to go to the gym afterwards, if that was a normal day where you were working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., does that make sense? 6 p.m. and then planning to go to the gym afterwards. Like, at what point in that day would you have a coffee or stop having a coffee? And could you simulate that for your night shifts? So what do I think about coffee on night shifts? If it helps you stay awake through the night, why not? I would probably mimic it in the same way I do my day. So an example would be, I would have 2 coffees in the morning and it would be before midday. So if my morning was 6 a.m. to midday, that's a 6-hour window. And if I was to mimic that with night shift, and again, I haven't done night shift, so I don't know. This would just be how I would start my trial and error. If my night shift started at 6 p.m. and I wanted to mimic what I do during the day so that my body can kind of be consistent with what its routine is, I'd be having a coffee early on and then another one no later than midnight, and then essentially letting that coffee disappear from my body, so that when I finish night shift at 8 a.m., my first thought process would be, I'm going home and I'm going straight to bed. That way the coffee's not affecting my sleep when I get home from that night shift. So what do I think about it? If it helps you stay awake and alert in your night shift, absolutely go for it. But don't, if you're someone who's affected by coffee, even if you can get to sleep on coffee, it can still affect the quality of the sleep that you have. So if you're having coffee later into that night shift, the only thing I would probably say generally would be, if you need to be awake at the end of your night shift, maybe coffee is a good idea there. If you're feeling the effects of tiredness and you need a coffee might be suitable there. Sometimes, though, we have coffee as a way to make ourselves alert, but we're actually needing fuel, so a meal, to provide our body with what it's looking for. So that would be the other way to look at it. I won't go too into the weeds there, though. Next question, does magnesium actually help you sleep? In a roundabout way, I think the general answer is yes. From there, though, it doesn't necessarily put you to sleep, but it helps relax your body, relax your mind. And so I pulled it up quickly to just refresh myself. So it plays a role in calming your nervous system, which then helps you get to sleep or helps you wind down for sleep. So does magnesium help? Yes. There is different types of magnesium though. So which one is, this will be fun for me to practice saying, magnesium glycinate, best overall for sleep because it's calming and it's gentle on the stomach. Magnesium threonate, good for brain effects, but it can be more expensive. And then there's magnesium citrate, which is not ideal before bed, this says. So if you're buying a magnesium, if it's a magnesium glycinate and it's 200 to 400 milligrams, before bed would be when you're taking it. So if you're on the night shift and you're going to bed straight after night shift, you could take that when you knock off or, you know, as you get home and you're getting ready to go to bed. I take my magnesium right before I go to sleep. It's in the bathroom. When I brush my teeth, I have a tablet. That's what I do. But generally, it helps with like winding down. It can help with muscle tightness. And it just, yeah, I guess it's more a calming effect as opposed to a going to sleep effect. Where did, oh, my tab's gone. Bear with me one moment while I find my questions again. So that, does magnesium actually help you sleep? I'm going to say yes, but that's based off nothing other than I've always found it helpful. And again, each person is different and it would take trial and error. What are the biggest sleep mistakes shift workers make? Sorry, and no, I'll answer this question because it'll come back to the magnesium part there too. This is good, Beck. Thank you. I feel like it's hard to mimic a daytime routine during night shift, especially with training and eating, as food really disturbs my gut. I know gut issues are huge amongst shift workers. So really great points. And again, it's one of those things. I've never been a shift worker, so it's hard for me to say. But if you have experienced things, which is what it sounds like, eating over your night shift might, you know, you can let us know in the comments, Beck. Maybe you've found a routine that works best for you where you eat dinner as if it's breakfast. Maybe you can eat something smaller later through the night shift, but then you don't want to eat it all from, say, I don't know, to guess, midnight through to 8 a.m. I'm curious, do you, Beck, if you want to let us know, like generally, do you finish a night shift and go straight to bed, like go home and go to bed, or do you do some stuff before you go home to bed, or do you come to the gym before you go home and go to bed, and do you eat after night shift as if it's breakfast and go to sleep, or do you eat and then come to the gym? They'd be a couple of questions I would ask there in terms of what you've learned works best for yourself, because this is what it comes back to, trying out different things. And so if you know that you find it hard to mimic a day routine with food, then maybe coffee is a great choice on night shift, but trying to limit it towards the back end of your night shift is going to be the best, particularly if you're planning on going to sleep straight after. From there too, I wanted to talk about mimicking like the sun. So general 9 to 5 workers or like daytime workers or whatever it might be, the body is programmed, your circadian rhythm. You wake up, you get exposed to light, that helps, or you wake up and your cortisol levels increase, you get exposed to light, they continue to increase, and they increase across like the first half of the day. And then as the day progresses on, and then towards later in the evening, then melatonin starts to take over in terms of the levels. So there'll be more of that produced to help you wind down and go to sleep later in the day. Now, the things that limit melatonin production can be bright lights in the evening, or screens, as people would say, putting light into your eyes and stimulating you in that way, in terms of your body not being aware that wind down time versus I'm just watching TV, but it's almost bedtime, those differences there. So when you're on a night shift, I'll have to retitle this because I like where the conversation's going, but I guess it's not really called keeping the streak going. When you're on a night shift, mimicking the best you can when the light would be in your morning on that day, and having brighter lights in the lead up there. So obviously overnight shift, as many bright lights as possible to keep you awake and keep you alert and keep the cortisol levels higher. And then as you start to like get towards the end of your shift, or if you know you're going to be going to bed not long after finishing at 8 a.m. and the sun's out, having ways to get into dark spaces or limit the amount of light in your eyes as you progress would be the suggestion there in terms of what would assist with magnesium or how you could help your sleep cycle. We all know we sleep the best in the darkness. And so if you can, or we all know we skip to sleep well if we've been in the darkness for a while. So if you can mimic some sort of dark room or dark wind down or low lights during that evening part of your shift, even if it is 8 o'clock in the morning, that would be most suitable. I do remember my old housemate, she was a nurse, and she used to put, because our windows were terrible in the house we lived in, and so there must be a nurse's trick where you cover your windows in foil. Maybe the foil sticks really well and then it helps block the light out. I just remember her doing that quite regularly because she did quite a lot of night shifts. What's the biggest sleep mistake shift workers make? Not sleeping enough? I don't know. What are the biggest mistakes you make, Beck? That would be a great question for you and Michaela to tell all of us about. What's the biggest mistakes you have made as a shift worker when it comes to sleep? Is it having coffee before going to bed, or maybe you don't feel like that affects you? Is it making the mistake of like sunlight in your eyes prior to going to bed in the morning and then that making it harder to go to sleep? Is it thinking that you can push through the day after a night shift, have a nap in the afternoon, and then rinse and repeat for the second night shift, only to find out that you feel the worst that you've felt? So, I mean, that's definitely, I could throw ideas out there of what might be the worst things, but it would be interesting to poll all of the shift workers to ask them what their biggest mistakes they've made when it comes to sleep have been. And then the final two parts, what should I do if I can't make it to the gym because I'm so tired after work? I think we kind of answered that at the start. And how do I get into a gym routine? And this is what I was saying. I think that, and this is, again, this is bias based off the people around me, but the shift workers that come to CrossFit Nautilus, I would like to think have a very good gym routine because I see them regularly. If there's a shift worker that I don't see regularly, I probably forget that they're a shift worker because I don't see them regularly. And because of that, I probably don't consider whether or not they have a gym routine. So how do I get into a gym routine? Well, consistency first. And it's going back to all that stuff at the start. It's like if you're a shift worker and you're trying to get into a gym routine and you always feel tired after work, maybe you just have to get the reps in literally by turning up. Doesn't matter what happens when you turn up. It's just about getting into the routine of going. So whether it is going to a group class, whether it is going to the commercial gym, whether it is going for, maybe you've got a home gym, whether it's actually physically stepping into the home gym and just being like, doesn't matter what happens for the next 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes, I'm building consistency in just showing up in this moment. And that will start to build the routine because that is the consistency required to continue with it. The more used to it you get, so that's that trial and error phase, the more you work out what works and what doesn't work for you in those situations, the easier it is to get into a routine for it. And then you've just got to keep the streak going. And so from there, one of the simplest things people would say, I think it's in the Atomic Habits book potentially, don't miss 2 days in a row. You could miss one day, but don't let it push out to two, because often when it pushes out to two, you allow a third, a fourth, a fifth, you go back on night shift and you go 2 days again. And then if you're really new in your journey, it's so much harder to get back into that routine again. Once you've committed to consistency over the space of 10 plus years, it doesn't feel so bad. So for an example, gosh, in the last 3 weeks, I might have done 5 workouts. And if that was me starting out over the space of 3 weeks, if I'd only done 5 workouts, I'd probably be like, well, this isn't working. What's the point? But I've come so far through this journey now that working out 5 times in the space of 3 weeks is just like a bump in the road. It's a hiccup and it's not that big of a deal, because I know that in any other situation, next week would change or tomorrow would be different. Outside of that, this might extend out a couple more weeks, but that's my own personal risk thing. What will my training look like after surgery tomorrow? I'm not sure. But generally speaking, if I'd known I'd had 3 weeks I've only trained 5 times in the last 3 weeks, my body would probably be ready to get back into its consistent routine. And that's because I've had over 10 years of that consistent routine. So you got to put the hard yards in early on to build that routine, and then it just becomes easier for you to do. It's like anything. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more challenging you can make it if you want, or the more simple it can be to maintain that consistency for you. But we all know the hardest thing is getting started. So if you are still getting into a gym routine, and I'm not saying that's you, Beck, just in general, anyone who might be listening, the consistency is going to be the most important thing. Set yourself a goal. Is it 3 times a week? Is it 4 times a week? Is it 5 times a week? And just make sure you do that, but make sure it's achievable for you so that you don't feel like you're failing because you set yourself a goal of, I'm going to do something 7 days a week, and then you miss one and you've already let yourself down there. And so that might, unless there's anyone in the listening who wants to comment in, that might bring us back around to, that's why I'm live today. Wasn't sure what I was going to talk about. Beck's questions seem like the simplest ones just to discuss without a backwards and forwards, although Beck's been in the comments, which has been really helpful. But keeping the streak going. At the start of the year, I said I'm going to go live once a week. And if I hadn't have gone live this week, I probably, because this is still really new to me, probably next week would have been like, well, I didn't do it last week, so what does it matter if I don't do it this week? And then that could have continued on for 3, 4, 5 weeks. The likelihood of me then not continuing on with this would have been higher and higher and higher. So just do something, whatever that something is, that you can consistently keep doing and it feels achievable for you. I'd like to thank Beck for all of those questions. Maybe one day Beck will join me on the screen, and maybe we'll get Michaela and any other shift worker that wants to talk about their experience, and we can go through those same questions again, and potentially, as I said, like every person can be different, so potentially find out that each person who might be discussing it has a different way that they handle what they're doing. And that's what's the most important thing. You've got to find what works for you, which is why trying different things is always useful. Don't just go, I did one thing and it didn't work, so I've tried everything. Continue to try different things until you find something that sticks. And once that sticks, everything else is going to become much easier for you too. Thanks to the Camera Life in the chat there. Like and subscribe. Give the video a like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, you can subscribe to the channel too. Thanks so much for your attention. If you've been on here the whole time, or if you've just popped in and out and you're on here right now, feel free once the live is over to leave a comment or a like. All right, I'll answer that, Beck. Just curious, what's your sleep routine? Pretty consistently. I've actually been pretty slack the last, not slack. It still won't sound slack when I say it, but it's slack for me. Again, each person's individual. My sleep routine is bed around 9 p.m. Wait, I'm going to give you my sleep routine before my wrist injury. Let's start with that. Bed around 9 p.m., wake up around 5 or 6 a.m., depending on whether I'm coaching or training. And that's pretty consistent. Now, the reason why that's been pretty consistent is because there was a period of time prior where, let's go back to, what year was it? 2023. After Seb left the gym and I was taking almost all of the classes. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning classes. So I needed to have a really consistent sleep routine to make sure that I could just function after doing all of that. So I would go to bed at 9 p.m. I would wake up at 5 p.m. I would go coach, come home, coach again, go to sleep 9 p.m., wake up 5 a.m. And that was pretty consistent to the point where on a Saturday and a Sunday without an alarm, I would be waking up before 6 a.m. So that would be my sleep routine back then. It's a little bit more lax now because I coach Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and I generally train at 9:30 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so with that training schedule, I can be a little bit more like, I could stay up a little later and it not affect me as much on nights where I don't have to get up early the next morning. I understand, though, the importance of consistency. So even though I have that flexibility now on certain days, I will still try and be in bed around 9 p.m. and wake up, whether it's 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. around that time. So if I'm coaching, I wake up at 5 a.m. If I am not coaching, generally I set the alarm to have me awake by 6 a.m. And I just have used that flexibility in my schedule since my injury as a way to maximize my sleep for recovery, to promote my recovery, to enhance my recovery, to speed up my recovery. With all of the new stuff I've been doing with my wrist, I found that I just wanted, it felt nice to say I've slept from 9:30 until 6 a.m. So extended amount of time, so extended amount of recovery through sleep. It's pretty simple though. I mean, that's it. Even on a Saturday, if we're not doing anything, like I might be in bed by 9 p.m. still because I'm like, well, I want to keep this routine up. Even on a Sunday, sometimes when I'm really, 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 really tired, like it might be 8:30 and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to bed now. And other times it might be 9:30 before we go to bed. But I generally try and be in the bedroom by that point. I don't have a phone in the bedroom. I'll just address this first before I go into what might or might not be in the bedroom. Sometimes in the summer, the sun is still up. Justin used to get really sad at me. So if it was still light outside and the sun was still up, it would be 9 o'clock and it's still bright. And I need to go to bed. And Justin's like, but the sun's still up. We can't go to bed. And that's what makes it really hard in summer. I really like summer and the warmth and the light that's outside. But because my routine is so consistent normally, anything after 9 p.m. I'm so tired for. Like my body knows that that's normally when I'm asleep. So that summer is hard. As much as I love it, summer's hard. If we took the boat out to the lake, we might not take the boat out of the lake until 9:30 p.m. And then by the time we get home, it's 10:30 by the time you wind down. They're my favorite summer nights and the hardest following mornings for me. But in terms of my sleep routine too, I get hungry early, so I like to eat early. So generally we'll have had dinner before 7:30. If it was up to me, it would be at 6:30 most nights, because Justin likes to eat a little later. Then we compromise. So let's say the latest we have dinner is 7:30 and then I'm asleep by 9:30. That's 2 hours before bed where I've given my body, hopefully, enough time to digest the food that I've eaten as well, so that it's not trying to digest while I'm trying to sleep. It's digested and then sleep can focus on rest and recovery. No phone in the bedroom. I leave it in the kitchen or in the office overnight. Justin does have an iPad in the bedroom, so he'll go to sleep watching, or he'll watch something before we go to sleep, like a TV show. I fall asleep while he's watching that. I was saying to Beck yesterday, I think he's programmed me to need that sound to go to sleep, whereas previously I didn't need anything to go to sleep. And I started noticing that because Justin does a podcast late on a Monday night. And on a Monday night, he might not get to bed till 10 p.m. or later. And sometimes I'm still awake at 10 p.m. when he comes to bed because I haven't been able to go to sleep. And so I think he's slowly programmed me to need that background noise to put myself to sleep. So generally speaking, not much technology in the room, or no, I don't have my phone. I don't have any technology in the room. We have automatic lights, so wake-up lights that come on. They are across the top of our window, and so they're scheduled to brighten over the space of 20 minutes, and they're set to different times on different days depending on what we're doing. Once upon a time, they were set for the same time every day because it was the same thing every day. But generally speaking, like I said, now, when I'm coaching in the morning, those lights will come on at 5:05 and they'll start to brighten. When I'm well rested, I wake up at 5:05 when those lights come on. It's like my body's ready for it. When I am tired, it might be 5:15 by the time my body wakes up. So it takes 10 minutes of that light being on in the bedroom, slowly, gradually getting brighter before my body is ready to wake me up from that light. On the days when I'm not coaching, it's set around 6 a.m. Sometimes I wake up before the light. Sometimes I wake up again, like right as the light comes on. And then outside of that, what else would I add to my sleep routine? So I have the magnesium before I go to bed. No phone in the bedroom, so I've got no distractions. Sometimes I read, but most of the time I don't read before bed. The lights come on in the morning, so I'm not waking up to a loud alarm, brah, 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 or anything like that, unless Justin has to wake up before me, in which case that scares me when it happens. That loud noise like shocks you awake. It always takes me 30 minutes to feel like I can function. And what I mean by that is, like, I make my wake up at 5:05 like that to the light, but I'm still like, geez, it would be nice to stay in bed right now. And then I'm going to be like maybe 20 minutes later, but definitely by 30 minutes later, I feel fine by that point. I'm like, okay, I don't need to go back to bed. I feel fine. I was just being a bit of a softie, wanting to just stay in bed because being in bed is the easier option. But more times than not, like most times, 30 minutes later, I'm good to go. When I'm distracted getting ready to do whatever I need to do in that 30 minutes prior to that moment, I'm not noticing it as much, but I just know that by 5:35 a.m., I'm like, okay, I'm awake. This is good. Let's go. What else? Sometimes if I'm not coaching, I'll get up and I'll have coffee within 30 minutes of waking up. If I am coaching and I wake up at 5, I don't have my first coffee until 8 a.m. So that differs depending on what I'm doing, and that's more just a convenience thing. Like, I want to sit down and enjoy my coffee. And if I try and have one before I coach a 6 a.m. class, I would have to get up earlier to do that. So that's not worth it for me. And outside of that, I don't know what else is in my normal sleep or wake routine. Did I fulfill enough information for you there, Beck? Did I miss anything? Our room is as cold as possible. We have our air conditioner on almost every day of the year. We sleep better in the cold. We sleep better with moving air. The moving air from the fan creates a bit of white noise or brown noise or grey noise or whatever the noise colour is these days that helps you sleep. And so again, when I talk about how consistent like my sleep routine is, it's not just time, it's like the setup of the bedroom in that way as well. Bedroom always cold, always moving air, always wake up to lights. So yeah, I guess that's probably enough. Beck says, yep, got it all, thanks. Taking notes. No. That's why, I mean, honestly, Cover. Oh, yeah. So Justin says cover all the little lights. So any little lights like on the air conditioner or anything like that, we've got covered with like sticky tape or Post-it notes or things, just so that those lights aren't beaming light into the room overnight too. So the room can be as dark as possible. But this is all where it's really interesting, because as a shift, like I don't know what it's like to be a shift worker. I won't even try and imagine what it's like to be a shift worker. But it would be really interesting to hear from the shift workers as to whether they found the same things help, or whether it really is, hey, this is what works for me. And person number 2 says, that doesn't work for me, but I found this works for me. And person number 3 says, well, guess what? This has worked for me too. Or whether it can be as simple as, this is the one routine that we've felt helps all shift workers out there in the world. I don't know the answer to that, but it would be interesting to do some survey responses to the shift workers that are around. Anyway, on that note, thanks for staying with me. Considering I thought I might do 15 minutes, I've been on here for 50 minutes now. And for those of you that join me in the comments or just listen from, what would you call that, creeping in the background, thanks so much for being there, and I will see you next week.